Is this mic working? I'm very excited to be here. I told my wife, look, we're going to cut this Labor Day weekend short because I have something very, very important to do, and I understand the power of this organization. And so when I talked to her again this morning, I told her, I got more work done last night in about 3 hours than I have probably in the last 3 months. This group of individuals and professionals is just absolutely amazing. So thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here. Go to the next chart, please. This is our nation's land component, the total Army and the Marine Corps. And frankly, the active component has not done a very good job of bringing everyone together in a common message. And so I'm here today to lay out what we're doing on the land side for our next generation of combat vehicles, and then ask you to assist us with this effort. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how to do that, and as well as elicit comments from you so that I can kind of see some of the experiences that you have and how I can learn from those. But I am fully committed to get the total Army and the Marine Corps moving in the right direction with a common message. Next chart. It all starts with the threat. And wherever I speak, I say if we're not going to talk about the enemy first, then we can't be friends, okay? Because the enemy has to be in the conversation. Next chart. You're familiar with this. I won't go around the circle. But the modern day battlefield, it's no longer about convoys and IEDs. It is everything inclusive of those two. We've got a 360-degree threat across every domain known to man. And what I am very, very comfortable with, that the land component, the armored vehicles in the next fight will be decisive. It's not going to be one component, but it's all of us, right? But the armored vehicles closing with and destroying our enemy at range will be decisive. Now, Wally Rugen's going to get up and talk next, and he's doing the future vertical lift. It's all one team. So helicopters over the shoulder, behind the next terrain, or behind the next terrain feature, but we're all working multi-domain to destroy the enemy, and we have to defeat this threat. And when you lay it out, when it goes to combat vehicles, next chart, this is the problem that we're trying to solve. Right now, we're outgunned. The Bradley, it's got a 25 millimeter, you're aware of that. Every nation that we will fight will have a 30 millimeter cannon. The next generation combat vehicle, optionally manned fighting vehicle, which I know is a lot, but the optionally manned fighting vehicle is our #1 priority. It's the Bradley replacement. On objective requirements, that's a 50 millimeter cannon. And to put that in perspective, 2 rounds, airburst, kills an infantry squad. So 2 50 millimeter rounds kills 9 enemy soldiers at range. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do for our nation, for you, for our country, is to see the enemy first and be able to shoot them before they can shoot us. And at threshold requirements for the Bradley replacement, we will have something that is twice as good as a Bradley, and an objective, guaranteed best vehicle on earth. Next chart. So what does the future fight look like? Go ahead, one more. What has eluded us since Agincourt as fighting men and women is the enemy common operating picture. We know where we are, we know what our capabilities are, but where is the enemy? So I'm going to go through a lot of vehicles that I've been charged to kind of lead the process through to get us to the end state, get it in your hands. But there's one other area that I've been tasked to do, and that's called Project Quarterback. And Project Quarterback will revolutionize the way we fight. So as you can imagine, the battlefield will be covered with sensors, right? It already is today. But we have proven that those sensors, through algorithms, can not only identify a T-90 tank, but geolocate it, aggregate it onto a common system, then promulgate that across the force. And then a machine can say, based on the location of the F-35 or the future vertical lift or the long-range protected fires or the tank, this is the highest probability of kill for that enemy vehicle, and then within seconds, deliver that mission to the friendly weapon system for delivery. And what we depict on this chart is enemy and friendly common operating picture displayed across every battlefield. But what's most exciting to me about Operation Quarterback is what you see in the lower left-hand corner. And that is commanders at echelon will have options in the multi-domain force. So right now, there's a lot of discussion about multi-domain operations, and the resources are limited. So if you want to apply EW, if you want to apply an F-35, if you want to apply anything, there's so few that we've held the authority and access to those at such a high level that our most important people on the battlefield are young enlisted men and women fighting on the ground, do not often have access. This is going to provide them access, in Project Quarterback, will allow us, as those assets become more prevalent on the battlefield, it allows them to rack and stack who gets what when based on the enemy situation. Next chart. Go ahead, one more. So I know General Murray spoke yesterday, so I won't belabor this chart. But in a nutshell, the Reader's Digest is, we used to be very linear. Fort Benning would write a requirement, they'd throw it up to Warren, Michigan. 10, 12 years later, the vehicle would roll into the hands of our soldiers, and they would say, what the heck is this? It's not what we wanted. Because someone wasn't with it every step of the way. The cross-functional teams, I'm sitting next to the science and technology, next to the PEOs, there in Warren, Michigan, next to contracting, and we are with each other either in a supported or supporting relationship through each step of the process. The results have been, frankly, amazing based on the professionals that are up there, and we've cut probably 2.5 years off just the requirement side. So very, very effective, and we just got to keep pushing because our enemy, again, back to the most important focus, the enemy is not waiting. As a matter of fact, they went to school on us, and they've gotten ahead of us in several areas. Next chart. So I've got 5+1. I've got these 5 vehicles that we're doing, and then Project Quarterback. The number one priority, again, is the optionally manned fighting vehicle. I'll go into a little detail on all these. Number 2 is the robotic combat vehicle, and that was, I'll go into more detail in a subsequent slide, but bottom line is, think 7, 10, and 20-ton robots equipped with 30 millimeter, 120 millimeter cannons, sensors, NBC sensors, visual sensors, et cetera, and those are all controlled by soldiers in the defilade. You got the AMP-V to replace the 113, mobile protected firepower, which is really replacing the Sheridan for light units, and then the optionally manned tank, the decision for which is in 2023 what that will look like. And the Secretary, well, now the Secretary of Defense never misses an opportunity to poke fun at me for saying that I don't care what the optionally manned tank looks like. It can hover, be run by a flux capacitor, and shoot lasers as long as it's decisively lethal and survivable, because we got to start thinking different. Next chart. So I'll go through these very quickly. You can read them. But in March, we dropped the request for proposal which is basically the contract solicitation, and 1 October, industry will deliver their bid samples and written proposals for the optionally manned fighting vehicle. It can be manned or unmanned. It can be a robot or a manned vehicle. 50 millimeter cannon, objective. 3rd gen FLIR, objective. Between 5 and 7 individuals in the back. Survivable, twice as survivable as a Bradley. So really, really excited about this. 1 October, right about the time we were at AUSA, we'll have the results and see what industry delivers. Next chart. The robots. I was just in Camp Grayling, Michigan, watching 4 robots conduct a zone reconnaissance to a position of advantage, call for fire, and then assault through an objective, all robotic controlled. These were teleop, waypoint navigation, obstacle avoidance. We can do that. So can the Russians, so can the Chinese. We're working towards levels of autonomy that will reduce the cognitive load on individuals, but we're doing experiments. So will the Army buy all 3 versions? I don't know. In 2023, we'll make a decision of the direction of which way we'll proceed with unmanned ground vehicles, but they're coming, and it will change the way we fight. It's not necessarily going to reduce the number of soldiers we need, but it will reduce the risk to the soldiers we have. I don't know why we would ever send a human to do a combined arms breach, NBC reconnaissance for 2 examples. Doesn't make any sense to me. There are skeptics. There are people out there that do not believe that robotics will take hold. I am the biggest advocate. I think the work I'm seeing in both autonomy and AI is going to enable us to fight differently and reduce risk. Next chart. Okay, so first unit equipped 2025, light tank. This will go with our light forces. The way I describe this to everyone whenever I speak is in every World War II movie you've ever seen, it's the same problem. The light infantrymen are pinned down. They can't get to the objective because there's something in their way. It's a vehicle, it's a machine gun nest, it's something. And right now what we have is a Humvee to get in there and root that out. This will solve that problem. Next chart. And then this is the least sexy vehicle that we're dealing with here. This is the AMP-V. It's replacing the 113. Obviously, it's 3 times as good as a 113. All right, it's Bradley-based commonality parts. It's survivable with underbody blast. It's bigger, but it's going to really be the workhorse of the ABCTs out there. Not sexy, but tough. Next chart. So that's a quick pitch. I wanted to leave as much time for questions as possible. And Wally, just give me the hook when it was time. So,
okay, any questions? Let's make a deal. Come on down. Sir, you may get off cheap. Got one coming?
We're on here. Hey, good morning. Major General Chris Callahan on the TAG of Rhode Island. And thank you very much for coming out and sharing your thoughts with us today. One of my concerns when I hear our leadership talk about autonomy, robotics, and AI is the reliance on some of our cyber networking. So could you share with us a little bit of how you are and your teams are working, our consistent ability to communicate with all those vehicles and all of the technology that we are, creating? Could you help us with that?
Yes, sir. So two things there. A robot currently needs between 10 and 40 megabytes per second available bandwidth for the cameras, et cetera. So that pipe is pretty significant. However, industry is delivering some multi-band radios that are capable of doing that. What does that mean? That reduces our range to where we want it, which is about 3 kilometers between controller and robot. And we're really on flat open terrain, we're about 2 kilometers. Once you start putting trees, et cetera, in there, it gets down to about 1.3 kilometers. So it's a physics problem, and we're looking for solutions for that, but right now it's tough. As far as the cyber, sir, look, we all know it, right? It's anything can be hacked. Anything can be hacked. Your plane you're on can be hacked. Your bus you're riding can be hacked. Anything can be hacked, and our job, and our team's job up in Warren and across the Army, frankly, is to make that as difficult as possible, because you do not want a robot in a key position of advantage being turned over to the enemy, and then now they have that against you. We have written the requirements very, very carefully. We've got red teams. We're currently in final stages of a CRADA with some really innovative companies that are solely founded around the idea of hacking and counter-hacking. So to be honest with you, sir, I think that it will be a challenge that we'll have to continually iterate on, but we are mindful of it.
Okay. Sir. Question?
Hey, good morning. Mike Thompson, Tag, Oklahoma. This might be out of your lane a little bit, but is there anything that Futures is doing about the eliminating or mitigating the effect of drones on the battlefield? We, in Oklahoma, we did a warfighter at Fort Riley, and we really didn't feel like we had a really good plan for how the drones from the enemy drones affected the battlefield. So just wondering about that.
So it is a little outside my lane, so I'll tell you what I've heard anecdotally, but so the answer is yes, sir. There is a lot of movement in this space, whether it's a soft kill solution, hard kill solutions. This is, as part of my duties and responsibilities, I manage the S&T portfolio and the money associated with that for all ground vehicle systems. And I can tell you that there's a lot of work on that, and a lot of it's on the Special Access Program side.
Okay. Just the last part, with these new vehicles coming online, is there any capabilities they'll have to detect and neutralize drones in the future? Because not trying to make a big deal about it, but it felt as if that totally changed the complexion of the battlefield in that simulated environment.
Yes, sir. So the answer is yes, across the CFT portfolio. And I'd push back a little bit on your comment. I think it is a big deal. So I think that you're bringing it up is spot on, sir, because this is something that's going to affect us. I mean, we see it in Crimea now. It's going to be part of future warfare. So the air defense CFT is really focused on this, as well as some other science and technology. As far as the Bradley replacement or the robots, my vision for the robots is that they're payload agnostic. So as that technology comes in, we can put that on a robot and move it forward on the battlefield. But yes, sir, this is absolutely something we're working on.
Question?
Sir, Major Daniel Evans, great state of Tennessee.
Who?
When talking about these new innovations, you very plainly stated that it's not going to reduce the force, but help better protect the force. One of the things my peers have been discussing over the last couple of days is, one, how is this going to affect the MDMP process? And are we discussing these things with proponency to ensure that our force is adapting enough, how we make up the force, to be able to adapt to the new environment that we'll be operating in for MDMP?
It's a great question. I don't think it's going to change MDMP. In a previous life, I was the COG at NTC. And there's all kinds of new capabilities that roll into units, and they bring them to the National Training Center and work through things. What it will do is it will change the friendly force analysis. It'll change the COFMs, right? And before I took this job, I thought doctrine should precede technology, but what I've learned is that they both lead, right? Technology and doctrine it's a sine curve. So I don't think it's going to change the way we do MDMP at all, but look, Brigadier General, or now Colonel Promotable John Rafferty's long-range protected fires, I mean, that's going to fundamentally change how we do targeting. It's going to fundamentally change how we do really D3A writ large. So these capabilities will change, and we have to get the information into the hands of people like you so that you understand as you're going in and do those COFMs and then analysis of where you want to move on the battlefield, that you have that. So right now, Fort Benning is working through this on the ground side, and we are in close coordination with them on the DOTLOM PF integration.
Thank you, sir.
One more question.
Morning, sir. Dan Bish, Michigan. As a 915, I love technology. However, I am concerned in terms of reliability and maintainability. Myself and my soldiers have to fix this equipment, high-tech equipment, in a low-tech environment. What are we doing in terms of making sure that these things survive operators, EMP, laser beams, whatever we have in the future? And then, and also, sir, what are we doing so that I can lessen my reliance on LARS and FSRs as warrant officer? Because I need to be able to get on this stuff soon. So, maintenance and functionality.
Yeah, so as a tanker, I love maintenance, right? I mean, it's what we do. Donuts, maintenance, two things. But bottom line is, we've written the requirements as such that, more miles before system aborts. One concern I have is the number of people on the battlefield. So as we're looking to downsize the crews, maybe from, let's say for the next tank, from 4 to 3. Well, that loader plays some key role, right? I mean, loading ammunition, fixing the vehicle, pulling security, runner, clearing the next hill line, all those things. So we are taking that into consideration. So we've got the requirements, but also on the next Bradley replacement, it will not only have diagnostics, but it'll have prognostics. And we saw a couple of General Perna quotes up there, but in my meeting with General Perna about the next Bradley, it was, if you know General Perna, crystal clear, like only he can make it, that this vehicle will have prognostics and diagnostics, and you got to figure it out, Coffman. And so we've gone through in detail and put those in there. And 1 October, I'll tell you what industry delivered.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. General Coffman, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your experience, being the COG, running the NTC, and being a great armored cavalryman. We thank you for what you do, and we expect only the best